Joe Biden and Donald Trump kicked off their general election rematch this weekend, basically both campaigning in the battleground state of Georgia. But as the race for the White House shapes up to be a redo of 2020, the centrist group No Labels says it will move ahead with a unity ticket. I asked former Republican presidential candidate Asa Hutchinson about the fight for those voters in the middle. Governor Hutchinson, thank you so much for being here again. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to be with you.
We'll talk about all the things happening inside the Republican Party, but I do want to ask you about the president's State of the Union on Thursday. A lot of pressure on him, I think, to meet the moment with that State of the Union address and to address, I think, some of the narrative that he wants to change away from his age and back to some of the things he wants to talk about. Do you think he managed to succeed in doing that?
I think he did very well in terms of the fire in his heart, getting ready for the campaign. I think he shored up Democratic support. And so I think he made a good presentation. Now, substantively, obviously, I don't think he did an effective job of going after independents, which he's got to do. He certainly shored up his base, and I think he made a dramatic presentation last night that will help him.
He mentioned his predecessor a lot, didn't name Donald Trump, but he sure named him. He mentioned him a lot. A lot of people thought maybe that was too political for a State of the Union. What did you think of how often Trump was invoked?
Well, as a former member of Congress, I've been to many State of the Union addresses. I've watched him through the decades. And let me tell you, that was the most political speech I've ever heard. It was a campaign speech. He mentioned his predecessor 10 times in the speech, and it didn't bring the parties together. It really set the tone for a fall presidential campaign. So it was effective for President Biden, but it was certainly much more political than we've ever seen at a State of the Union address.
All right, well, let's talk about how things are going on the other side. Nikki Haley, obviously now out of the race, but didn't endorse Donald Trump. Instead, she called on him to reach out to voters who are not yet convinced he's the right choice to try and earn their vote. What did you make of her messaging? Did that surprise you at all, Governor?
It didn't surprise me, but I think it's right. The burden of unifying the party is on the front runner. It's on Donald Trump. He needs to reach out to Haley's supporters and those donors and that base of the Republican electorate that did not support him. He needs to reach out to them. And I think if he does effectively, then even Nikki Haley is likely to come in and say, you give me a good spot in the convention where I can convey my message. I think that could bring them together.
How likely is he to do that, though? And what kinds of things would he have to do and say to get there? Because I don't see a guy willing to compromise on his message so far.
Well, you're right about that. And so while that's the smart thing to do, it's the rational thing to do. When's the last time Donald Trump did that? And so we'll see how that plays out, but I'm sure he'll get that encouragement. But without that, you know, he's got 30 to 40% of the Republican base that says they want an alternative. And so he can't just simply, you know, feed his base. He's got to reach out more if he wants to win.
On Friday, the No Labels group held a private virtual meeting with its delegates, and it is, I guess, deciding, the group is hoping to have a potential candidate in the coming weeks. Is a third-party unity ticket, is that even feasible at this point? Is it something that is really worth talking about or watching?
It really is. I would encourage you to follow it.
Yeah.
You look at our political history, the two major political parties have served our country well. But this year, the two major political parties are giving the electorate two candidates they don't want.
Yep.
The Biden-Trump rematch. And so if there's ever a time for a third party or independent run, it is now. And then you also have the combination of the unknown and the future. President Biden is not going to get stronger between now and November. And President Trump is going to be the same person he is now, which is problematic, and he's got criminal cases pending. That's not going to get better. So if there's ever a time, it is now. we'll see where that goes.
Well, so then how soon would they have to start putting names to the no labels? Because you would want to start positioning yourself, I would imagine, and start bringing in money and really making a substantive run.
They would need to do that within the next month or so.
Okay.
And part of the reason is they can get on 16 state ballots, but you have to have a name to get on many of the state ballots as well. And so you've got to start that process. They need to get moving if that's going to be a reality.
We've talked before about how disillusioned lots of Americans are when they look at the ticket, the way it's going to be for them, Trump or Biden. Is there anything that either of them could do that could re-engage Americans or make them believe that one of them really deserves this and will bring something different and new?
Well, I think President Biden had a good start on that last night. He solidified his support among his base, among Democrats. I think they have a higher level of comfort with him, sort of rationalizing where they are right now. And so he helped himself. Can Donald Trump help himself? I think an acquittal on a criminal case would help him.
Really?
But we'll see how that plays out and whether a case actually gets to trial or not. So a lot to be seen, unpredictable. And one thing we know for sure, Donald Trump is not going to change his ways. And Joe Biden is not going to get any younger.
Just let me end on this. When you look at the polls from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Trump is ahead of Biden. What is it in your mind, Governor, that is still resonating from the former president? What is it that people are liking about what he's saying?
One simple thing, and that is they see him as a fighter that will fight for them in a Washington that is not functioning well. And whenever it comes to the dire circumstances of our southern border, they see Biden failing and they see Trump as successful. And that's the magic that he has right now.
Governor Hutchinson, thank you so much for making the time for Canada again. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, Rosemary.